audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Matt Ohayon back with you on the Sick Podcast. It's Friday. Welcome to the weekend, everyone. Boy, I'm excited to talk about the Canadiens. Okay, before we do that, the Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Energy Transportation Group is a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Are you looking for the ultimate playground entertainment destination? Playground is your ticket to nonstop thrills. Experience heart-pumping game action and a world-class poker experience. Playground is the 2025 winner of the Fan Choice Best Poker Room at the Global Poker Awards. Indulge your taste buds at our incredible restaurants, then let loose with live music and electrifying DJs. Enjoy unmatched customer service just minutes away from downtown Montreal, right across the Mercier Bridge. Why settle for ordinary? We're also brought to you by Bittt Tibi beer. Bittt Tibi has launched their new Ultra Lager, a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for those spring days with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, and 4% alcohol per can. Available in packs of 6 and 12 in grocery stores and dépanneurs across the province of Quebec. Ultra light, ultra refreshing. And of course, by Betway, go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. Offer is available only for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offer is not available in Ontario. You must be 18 years or older, and please play responsibly. Okay, exciting game last night if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, which most of you are. Not so exciting if you're a Boston Bruins fan. Well, too bad. The shoe has officially been put on the other foot. Okay, let's talk about it with my usual Friday guest. His name is Stu Cowan. He writes for the Montreal Gazette. Stu, how we doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing fine. Listen, it's good times in Montreal Canadiens land because you know, I can't remember. It's not too long ago, but it was this season. It was definitely in 2025, but I can't remember, you know, in the last few stretch of games, because we've seen the Canadiens be quite streaky down the stretch here. When was the last time that they kind of weren't cardiac kids when they were winning and they dominated a game from start to finish, basically, like they did last night?
Yeah, against Boston, that was an impressive performance, and they outshot them. It was like 15-2 or something in the second period. They're all over them. It was one of those games where, you know, at one point the shots I think were 13-0 in the second period. I sit beside Xhekaj and I said, "Boy, if the Bruins score the next goal, could be bad." You know, when you just dominate a team like that, and the next, you know, it's 1-1. It didn't happen. They kept playing. They had 4 lines pretty much rolling. Strong on both ends of the ice. Patrick Laine had played a strong defensive game. They're just firing on all cylinders, and really, you know, it's remarkable the turnaround. They went into that 4 Nations face-off break. They were 1-7-1 in their last 9 games, and it looked like they were out of it. And since then, they're 11-4-4. And you know, it's the way things are looking now, and with the schedule they have moving forward, you have to think they're going to get into the playoffs. They're 81 points now. They need it was a 10-point. Last year it took 91 points to get into the playoffs, so they would need, you know, 10 points in their last 7 games to get that. 4-2-1, a record like that, and I think with the schedule they have, they can do that.
Very favorable schedule. I actually want to pull up a little graphic I saw the other day on Twitter. If Sammy and Yellow, you would be so kind. Thank you very much. So this is something I saw on Antichambre after the game in Florida, before the revenge game of the Mikola incident. So this is really interesting to me because this is exactly how streaky they have been. Now, it's not too long ago. We didn't talk much during those games 68 to 72 because I was on vacation, but it was not going well for the Canadiens, and each loss, even the overtime ones, felt like such a big, heavy blow to the body if you're a boxing fan. And just, I don't know, it felt like it was slipping away. Thankfully for the Canadiens, it kind of was like last year's playoff race. Nobody really wanted to take the reins and take that last playoff spot. And since then, it says matches 73 to 82. We could say now if it was 73, it'll be 3-0-0 instead of 1-0-0 because of those two games against Florida and then Boston. So this team is just firing on all cylinders, like we said, and it feels like even though they're right there and they're in the driver's seat, they're going to need to have one of those, second in the league records in the NHL for them to just go in with confidence. Even those overtime losses, they felt dirty. Like you didn't feel good after those, even though they came away with a point.
The thing that's interesting, they've had 10 games this season when they were trailing in the third period and they came back to either win or lose in overtime or a shootout. All 10 of them were after Christmas. And Cole Caufield was asked about that this week. How do you explain it? He said, maybe we just got good Christmas gifts and we were all happy coming back, and then jokingly. And then he said afterwards, it's been the system and concepts that Marty's been trying to get this team to play with. And we saw how disorganized they were earlier in the season with that hybrid defensive system in their own zone, breaking down all the time. It still breaks down once in a while now, but not that often. We don't see them stuck in their own end and running around. So everything's just sort of clicking. And it was interesting last night because I spoke in the Marty's post-game news conference. Patience has been the key word for this team in the 3 years of the rebuild since Jeff Gorton took over and Kent Hughes and Marty. It's about how patient they have to be. And they've been patient, very, very patient. And I asked him last night, it's easy for you guys, or easier for you guys to be patient than it is for like a Brendan Gallagher, right? Or a Mike Matheson. Mm-hmm. Or Josh Anderson, guys that have less games ahead of them than they have behind them in their NHL careers. And Marty said it's true, but the veteran guys bought in and they helped bring these young guys along. And Marty said this season it's up to the young guys to pay the older guys back, pay the veterans back. It's up to them to repay what the veterans sort of sacrificed through the first 3 years of this rebuild. And we're seeing it now. And that veteran line, that line of Dvorak between Gallagher and Josh Anderson has just been fantastic. They've been the offense from the fourth line. They were getting great offense before from Jake Evans and Armia and Heineman. That dried up, but the third line, that veteran line, has really picked it up and contributed offensively and played well at both ends of the rink. And they're a really big reason. The veterans are a big reason why this team is where they are right now, and the kids are feeding off of them, I think.
Well, you said it best. That line is, I had it written down on my paper. I wanted to talk about them because it's exactly what you said. They picked up the slack of where the fourth line had left off, which has been, leaving something to be desired since the beginning of 2025, I would say. But that line, it looks like a completely different line than last year and what we had seen from Brendan Gallagher, from Josh Anderson, from Christian Dvorak. And I know Gallagher got hot near the end of the season that last year. He got suspended, and he said that did a lot of good for him, recovery wise. But this line, it's just, this is old school. We're seeing old school Brendan Gallagher, old school Josh Anderson, and frankly, a Christian Dvorak we had never seen in Montreal.
No, true. And Dvorak, Marty said after the game last night, he doesn't do anything like outstanding, but he does a lot of things well. And we're seeing that now. And I think just the fact that they've, left that line together, they've been together almost all season, and they play their own, they play a north-south style, right? Like they're not, Marty has different concepts and sees the games differently. Lane Hutson sees the game differently. These are three veteran guys who play a north-south game. They chip it in, they forecheck hard. Josh Anderson plays the body. And the fact that Marty's left them together all season, they've really developed some chemistry. They like playing together. Dvorak was asked the other day, did you come into the season with a chip on your shoulder? And he says, everybody in this league has a chip on their shoulder. Everybody has something to prove. And they've just really been feeding off each other really, really well. And there's just a solid line. Marty trusts them. Brendan Gallagher, 19 goals. It's been 5 years since he hit the 20-goal mark. He's stayed healthy now 2 consecutive seasons. That's huge. And they're feeding off the kids, and the kids are feeding off them. Like, they're excited, but like Brendan Gallagher was saying, like, the first time he saw Lane Hutson on the ice in the pregame skate last year in Detroit, he was like, man, this kid's special. You can tell right away. And they're feeding off each other. The young guys excite the older guys, and the older guys have really played a key role in bringing these young guys along. And it's a solid locker room. These guys like each other. They want to play for each other. And I think, they're going to get in the playoffs. And I think the key is going to be, can Sam Montembeault provide the consistent, solid goaltending they're going to need down the stretch and once they get into the playoffs. He's very capable of it. He made huge saves last night against the Bruins. He has that tendency to let in the soft goal here and there, which people focus on a lot, understandably. But I think going into this last stretch, I'd be surprised if St. Louis doesn't go with Montembeault back-to-back Saturday, Sunday, and right through the end of the season. And he's going to be the key just to he's got to give him a chance to win every night, and a little bit more than that on some nights, right? Even if he can steal a game here between now and the end of the season, that could be the difference between them getting in or not. But I mean, the team's just rolling. They're playing really, really well. And you say that veteran line is really been a key to it.
Well, that's it, because, in years past, we're talking back in Carey Price's days. Carey Price had to bail the Canadiens out more often than not. And now offense, it's not, I wouldn't say it's not some nights it's a concern, but overall, I don't think it's a big concern of this team. So given that, when the offense is doing its job, you need your guy in the back to make the saves he needs to make. And like you said, it's fair. He's been shaky at times, but I think overall he's been doing a good enough job. It's just in those moments, as the season winds down, every goal just means so much, as you could tell by crowd reactions whenever one goes into the net, and even when one goes into the net of the Canadiens, because all my group chats are now blowing up every Canadiens game because it's must-see TV, and we haven't really experienced playoff hockey in forever. And now, whenever one of those soft goals go in, it's like the world is ending. And I think that's
Or if Mike Matheson coughs up the puck once, it's the world is ending.
That's it. Yeah. Well, that's it. It's the world is ending, but that's just remnants of the past 3 years, 4 years that the Canadiens fans have endured. But maybe it's just they've earned their spot right now, but they haven't earned the trust of they could come back, because even though they have been cardiac kids, the law of averages, that's going to run out at one point. You're going to run into a team like a St. Louis during that stretch of games that's just going to, they're going to kill the game right away.
Well, I mean, I've written columns this year, and I've tweeted many times that there's something special about this team. There really is. And we saw that game against Florida. Was it 28 seconds left in the game? Face off in your own zone. You're down by a goal. I mean, there were people in the Bell Center leaving. I was watching them leaving. I was packing up my bag in the press box, getting ready to go down to the locker room. This one's over, and then somehow they come back and tie it up with 8 seconds left, and then Suzuki scores again in overtime. And it's like there's something special happening. And guys are talking about the hockey gods and that the day after that game, and they're saying when you do things right and you play the right way and repeat it over and over and over and over, the hockey gods, we believe in, they pay you back at some point. And I think the Canadiens are getting paid back now. They had bad breaks this season that along the way, all teams do, but they're getting a lot of good breaks going their way right now. But they've sort of earned those, right? I mean, they've played hard. Nick Suzuki, you can't say enough about this guy. We're talking about them being 1-7-1 going into the Four Nations break, and Suzuki asking Ken Hughes not to break up the team. He says, we've got something special here. And Ken Hughes as well, start winning some games. Up to you. You're the captain. Put the team on your shoulders and do something about it. And he did. I mean, he's been just phenomenal since the Four Nations break in the scale, just playing outstanding hockey and dragging his teammates along with him. And like I said, who on this team right now is not playing well? There's like you can't really single anybody out. They're firing on all cylinders. They're getting 100% effort out of everybody. And I mentioned Patrick Laine, and going into the Four Nations break, he was looking forward to playing for Finland, saying maybe I'll get more ice time now. But Marty wasn't going to give him the ice time. Like he says, I got to be able to trust him to put him on the ice when we're protecting a 1-goal lead or it's a tie game late in the third period. And he's been doing that more now. He's been playing much more. He's putting more effort into defensive play. He still makes too many risky plays at the offensive blue line, either just outside the blue line or just inside the blue line, which drive coaches crazy because those will result in 2-on-1s or 3-on-2s going the other way. But it's that balance where you don't want to take away his offensive creativity. But he's playing much more a 200-foot game, and he's cut down on those sort of risky plays, but he still makes quite a few of them. But I mean, he's been playing well, and so is basically everybody on this team. And to the point, people talk about Arbor Xhekaj. I see lots of comments. Marty St. Louis hates him, and he's got it in for him. And Jaden Struvel's played better than him.
Yeah,
and steadier, and Marty St. Louis trusts him more, and that's why Arbor Xhekaj's sitting out. And Marty said the other day, they're tough decisions, but these are good decisions to have. They have enough solid defensemen that Arbor Xhekaj is the odd man out.
Well, and that's just the way it's going to go because, like you said, I remember at one point, I forget which game specifically, but I said it was right when Struble and Hutson got put together. And I said, and there was just a disastrous moment in a game. And I said, wow, this cannot go on for much longer. And they shut me up pretty quickly because it did go on for much longer, and they've been probably their best pairing. And with that and Caden Gooley coming back, you want to talk about the lack thereof of moves at the trade deadline. The best acquisition they got was getting Caden Gooley back against all odds, really, and that just internal competition. It's what this team has been preaching since, Martin St. Louis and Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes really took the reins. It's internal competition because they have the talent, and that's what we're seeing right now. And I think if people take, the bravado of Xhekaj out of it and, what he provides physically, I think you could see with an objective eye that, not to say he was playing badly, but he was the one to be the odd man out if once there was a lineup change to be made.
Well, people love Arbor Xhekaj. I love Arbor Xhekaj. I mean, he gives you everything he's got, right? He defends his teammates. He's a good teammate. But at the end of the day, I mean, Jaden Struble's a second-round draft pick. Arbor Xhekaj is an undrafted player, right? So there's more potential talent in Jaden Struble. And he's just more consistent. But as Jaden said, I talked to him after the morning skate yesterday. There's a period he sat for 9 games while Xhekaj played. So it's not like people saying, he hates Struble sat for a long time. Xhekaj, they've been the two guys sort of battling back and forth for a spot. A lot of people say, well, why doesn't David Savard sit out? I don't think Marty's going to sit out the veteran. And he explained the other day too. He says the PK, David Savard's out there. He's a key member of that PK. And he's also a guy that he puts out at the end of a game when they're protecting a 1-goal lead or they're tight. He says he makes smart plays. He trusts him. Yes, David Savard's slower now. Yes, he's probably at the end of his career. This could be his last season. But Marty said he brings a value to the team in that way. And the coach has to trust the defenseman. And with Xhekaj, the trust level just isn't there. But if Struble starts to struggle, then he'll sit and Xhekaj will go back in. So that internal competition is really good. You mentioned getting Caden Gooley back. I mean, that pairing with him and Lane Hutson, we're going to see those guys together for a long time, I think. They both shoot left, but they're both able to play on the opposite side. So they can rotate and move back and forth. It's not that big of a deal. And speaking with Gooley after the morning skate yesterday, I asked him if he thought he was going to come back, and he said no, not at first anyway. He said he didn't even realize that injury, that at first he had been cut until he saw his sock was cut. And then he looked and he could see the inside of his leg and sort of went into shock. And, the trainers told him afterwards, this is going to be an aggressive rehab, different than some other surgeries to get you back because we got to keep that scar tissue moving and those stitches moving that they'll heal. And he said he did a lot of hard work off the ice and on the ice trying to get himself back. Ken Hughes has said he wouldn't bring him back if they weren't still in the playoff race. They'd wait until next season till he healed, but he wanted to come back. He was determined to come back. He put in a lot of hard work to get himself back, and he's coming back and playing monster minutes. Physical, got in a fight last night. Had sort of a funny line. He said I said, what was going through your mind in the ambulance going to the hospital? And he said, well, once they stopped the bleeding, I realized, okay, I'm going to be okay. There was a lot of blood. Mm-hmm. Then he says, the potholes in this city, every pothole that the ambulance hit, I felt like the pain was like crazy. It was like, oh my God, to the right to the hospital, which anybody in Montreal can relate to the potholes here. But kudos to Kaiden Guhle for wanting to get back and working so hard to get back and coming back and playing. It looks like he hasn't missed a beat. I mean, he's just a real solid hockey player and solid person. If Nick Suzuki wasn't captain of this team, I think Kaiden Guhle would be. I think he's very similar to Suzuki in a lot of ways. That quiet leader, a well-respected guy on the ice, well-respected guy off the ice. And watching him and Lane Hutson play together, apart from the fact they both shoot the same way, I said it's not that big of a problem. I think we're going to see them together for a long time.
Well, two guys who are just so intelligent in the way they see things. We talk about how Lane Hutson sees the game a certain way. When was the last time you've seen Kaiden Guhle on the ice and you'd say, oh my God, Kaiden Guhle, no, why'd you do that? Why'd you make that play? So when you have two guys like that just know the game so well, and I know Lane Hutson has been getting a lot of criticism for his defensive play as of late. That's the big knock on him for everyone, it seems like, outside of Montreal.
I don't understand it. People look on the plus minus. He's been on the ice for 12 empty net goals against this season, which is also very funny that people look at plus minus when it comes to Lane Hutson, because they seem to discredit that stat when it comes to literally any other player in the NHL. Yeah, it's a stat that has to be taken with a big grain of salt. I mean, I asked Jake Evans about that earlier this year. How much emphasis do you put on plus minus? And he brought up the empty net goals against. It's an empty net goal against shouldn't count as a minus. It's like your shorthanded goal almost doesn't count as a minus. So those things got to factor into it. But with Lane Hutson, I talked with Jay Pandolfo this week as Boston University coach, and he told me last summer that he thought Lane Hutson would be even better in the NHL than he was in NCAA because he'd be playing with better players who see the game sort of similar to him. And he was right. He has been. And he wasn't worried about his defense either. He said, there'd be problems early on. And there were. I mean, he had some breakdowns early on. But he's so aggressive on defense, and he plays his angles so well. He's got a good stick. You see him win one-on-one battles all the time with guys that are much bigger than him. I'm not concerned about Lane Hutson's defense. I mean, he's never going to be the big guy clearing guys out in front of the net. We'll see how he performs in the playoffs when it's raised to physical level. But, I'm not overly concerned about it. And I think the knock on his defense, I don't think it's warranted. And I think a lot of people do look at that plus-minus stat, and that's, as I said, every time the Habs pull the goalie, he's on the ice, right? So if their team scores in the empty net, it's going to be a minus against him going forward. So, it's just – and he's only going to get better. He's 21 years old. He's going to get a little bigger. He's going to get a little stronger. If he develops it, and he will develop a better shot because he's going to work at it. This kid's going to be a superstar hockey player. He really is.
Yeah, I think it would even be fair to say that he already is one. It's just he just I can't remember a time. People say PK Subban because he had those electrifying moments, but not this early in his career did PK Subban electrify crowds like Lane Hutson did. PK was very good at bringing people out of their seats. Let's not get it twisted, but he wasn't exactly known for carrying the puck up the ice and making these moves and his defensive edge work. He wasn't known for these things. He was known for making big hits and scoring big goals at clutch moments. Yeah. That's what PK Subban was known for.
Yeah, PK's best offensive season with the Canadiens, he had 60 points and 45 assists. So, and that was, I think, his fifth or sixth year in the league. It wasn't as a rookie. And, Lane Hutson's already broken Chris Chelios' record for most assists by a Canadiens rookie. He's probably going to break the NHL record. He needs 3 more, I believe it is, to break the NHL record. He
needs 3 to tie.
3 to tie, 4 to break, yeah. And the Canadiens record for a defenseman for assists in a season, Larry Robinson was 66. No, if he doesn't, next year that record is probably going to be gone. With and now to talk about, and all these guys you're talking about are Hall of Fame players. That Lane Hutson's being compared with these guys. I'm being talked about in the same breath with them. And it's, the Canadiens. A lot of teams are kicking themselves now that late second round pick, right? Teams who passed on him because of his size. And Ken Hughes had said when he was on another podcast a little while ago that they had him ranked higher than 62nd, I think it was he went. But the Canadian scouts kept telling Hughes, don't worry, he's still going to be there at 62. And they drafted 3 other guys before him. They drafted Slafkovsky and Massar and Owen Beck. And then they took Lane Hutson with the 4th pick, and he was there at the 62nd pick. But yeah, the kid's just and he will get better. I mean, he works at his game. And talked with Brendan Gallagher about Hutson the other day, and he'd said that first time he stepped on the ice for the pregame skate, first game in Detroit, he went like, wow. But he said there's a lot of guys with a lot of talent, but not everybody works the way that Lane Hutson works, right? On the ice and off the ice. So they got to lock him out of the Brossard practice rink on days off. I'm not sure. They had a day off today. I'm not sure if he was there or not. He probably was. And he also told me, Hutson told me, he said he was asked about, the Canadiens, are they trying to get him to slow down a bit? And he said they've just sort of let him do his own thing up to now. They let him get ready the way he wants to get ready. He loves hockey. He loves being on the ice. There was one practice a couple of Sundays ago where they told him, don't go to the rink today, take the day off. And he said he was bored out of his mind that day. He just sat at home, watched a movie with his mother, and waited to go to the rink the next day. The kid lives, breathes, eats, and sleeps hockey. That's his whole life.
Well, that's it, because he's been probably doing this routine of skating every single day probably since before he was on the U.S. national.
Yeah, his parents have a rink. His parents own a rink in Chicago, so it's the ice time.
There you go. It's ice time galore.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's ice time galore for him.
3 ice time. I mean,
so,
he's a joy to watch play, and he's a real joy to be around and just interview and talk to him. I mean, he looks like he's 14 years old. He's so humble. He's so he's just a really nice kid. I tweeted last night. It's when there's a loose puck, he looks like a puppy chasing a ball. He's having so much fun out there playing the game, and his teammates are having fun watching. He's not fun to play against, obviously. And you mentioned earlier, the little shimmy shakes he has every time he has the puck. He does something to either get away from a player. I mean, last night he threw one of those lob passes to Caufield, and it almost worked. I remember he did that back in training camp one day. It was like one of those long lob passes. And he sees the game so different. It was funny, too, because after the game, I guess the game against the Flyers, and Arpin Basu was talking with Goulet, and he was saying, do you ever overhear like when Marty and Lane Hutson are talking about the game? And he says, yeah. He says, they're speaking a different language. I don't even understand it. It's like they see and think the game on a totally different level. And I followed up with Goulet yesterday on that. And it's, the elite players all see the game differently than other players do, right? They just see it differently. And Lane Hutson sees the game so differently, and so does Marty St. Louis. And I don't think Marty St. Louis gets enough credit for what Lane Hutson's been able to do this year. Because some coaches and previous Canadiens coaches would not have given Lane Hutson the freedom to do what he does, right? Michel Therrien wouldn't be letting Lane Hutson do a lot of the things he does. And I don't think Dominic Ducharme would. But Marty St. Louis sees the game differently, and he can relate to what Lane Hutson, how he sees the game and when they talk together and different things. And he's right from the beginning, we were talking about, he had some defensive problems at the beginning. Marty didn't bench him, didn't sit him out. He just told him, go play. And they worked with him. And he said, I was asking him, Hutson, a little while ago, what's the biggest lesson you've learned so far this season? And he says, more or less what I can and can't do. There's a lot of things he can do, right? That a lot of things that probably worked in NCAA that don't work in the NHL. So he had that feeling out process through the first part of the season, figuring out what he could and couldn't do. And Marty St. Louis gave him the freedom to do that and learn it by himself, and not every time he made a mistake be stapled to the bench like what happened with so many other young defensemen when they were coming up. I remember that infamous video of Michel Therrien in the video room chewing out P.K. Subban for something he had done, and P.K. sort of saying, well, what did you want me to do, type of thing, and Therrien just kept yelling at him. There was no coaching going on. There was just a coach yelling at a player. And you compare that with the way Marty St. Louis has handled things, and a lot of people shook their heads when Marty said it was hard as head coach originally, coming from coaching Pee Wee and Bantam kids to coaching in the NHL. But when we look back now, what a smart decision that was by Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton. He was the perfect coach to come in and build this team and grow with this team. And as Marty has said, he's learning as they're learning. He's learning how to be a coach. And the systems and the concepts he's had and the 3 years of hard work that have got into this are really starting to pay off now.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch come to fruition because, you watch how many games this season were probably both of us, I can speak for myself, saying he can't coach this team anymore. He can't do it. He just can't do it. He can't bring them to the level. They were right there. They were in every game, but they were losing and losing and losing. And it was just right around Christmas where they were just trying to get to the break. And I just said, I don't know. And then they went on that trip and, they dominated. They who would have thought, back in December when they beat Tampa and Florida in back-to-back games, now with the way that they're playing, it's kind of expected. That's how they've raised the level of expectation in this city. But back then it was like, wow, oh my God, they pulled off a miracle.
I remember that game that got blown out was a 9-3 by Pittsburgh. And
the season was over.
It was around that time I was starting to wonder, okay, like this hybrid defensive system they're playing, these guys can't figure it out. It's like, it's too complicated. Marty's vision is maybe too complicated for some of these guys to understand. I was wondering then if maybe, he needed another assistant coach with some more NHL experience, maybe to help him out. But I remember talking with Caden Gooley when they started to turn things around a little bit. And he said, he says, we wanted to turn this around for Marty. They love playing for this guy.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any guy in that team who doesn't like playing for Marty St. Louis. And they wanted to play better for him. And they have. And that coach player bond that they have is really, it's growing and growing and growing. And even more so now when the players start seeing all those concepts that maybe when Marty came in and they were like, what's he talking about? Mm-hmm. And now everything's sort of starting to make sense, right? Even that hybrid system they have, it breaks down every once in a while, not that often anymore, right? And puck goes in, puck comes out a lot of times, pretty simple. And, getting Carrier as that trade they made to get Carrier, another puck-moving defenseman. So you got Matheson, Carrier, Hutson. You got 3 puck-moving defensemen, Gooley. You got defensemen who can move the puck and get it out of the zone. And that system is it works. And, again, my question going into the playoffs and going down this stretch run, I think Sam Montembeault is going to be the key guy for this team as to whether they get in or not and how far they can go once they get in.
This is going to be the last time, Stu, you and I feed into this nonsensical online discourse of, Nick Suzuki isn't a true number 1C, or Lane Hutson is not all that. He's a second assist offensive merchant, and Cole Caufield is too small. Okay, so if Lane Hutson is getting all these secondary assists, first of all, doesn't that mean he's creating offense?
Getting the puck out of the own zone, moving the puck out of his own zone. Yeah.
That's one.
Yeah.
2, if Nick Suzuki isn't a number 1C, then how does he have more than, he's more than a point per game player at this point. I think he has 81 points after last night.
Yeah.
And if Cole Caufield isn't a prolific goal scorer, how the hell, who's stirring the soup? Who's making the sausage? How's it being made? I don't know. Something's got to be right. I think this is all, Toronto media conspiracy. I don't know what it is, but it's just people don't want to accept the fact that the Canadiens have now, come out of the gutter. Maybe just because it's a little quicker than a lot of other teams have done in the past.
Buffalo Sabres, 14 years they missed the playoffs. And look at all the high draft picks they've had. They haven't. And I think part of that is, we were talking about patience before. I need to go back and look and see how many coaches the Buffalo Sabres have gone through in those 14 years, but it's a lot. And every time you change the coach, new system, new this, things change, right? There's no continuity with it. Kudos to Jeff Gorton, Kent Hughes, and Jeff Molson
Yeah, big kudos to Jeff Wilson.
No, he's the guy who said we're doing a full rebuild. Patient, no playoff games is money out of his pocket, right? He didn't know. I remember I had a one-on-one with Jeff Molson the end of last season, I guess. Last year, the season before, and asking him, and he said, I didn't know if the fans were going to be patient and accept this. We've never done this in the history of the Canadiens. Fans have been patient too. Fans deserve credit for being patient with this also. Montreal hockey fans are pretty smart, right? And I think when they see a plan in place and they see smart people running the team, and as I've said many times in this podcast and elsewhere, there's decisions they've made that you might disagree with, but you can understand the thinking behind it. It's not, they haven't made moves. You go, what the hell was that? What a ridiculous move that was. And I think that goes a long way. The players buying in, fans buying in, and in year 3 of a rebuild, and we haven't even mentioned, they signed Jacob Fowler today.
Yep. Right?
He's going to be joining the Laval Rocket. The Laval Rocket are the best team in the American Hockey League. So you've got a team 3 years into a rebuild where looks like they're going to get in the playoffs, and their farm team's the best team in the AHL, and they've just added probably arguably the best goalie outside of the NHL right now, and Jacob Fowler. It's be interesting how he does. It's just things are just all the 3 years of hard work these guys have put in. Everything's sort of coming together now. Right? You got Demidov coming here next year also, right? And it's just the goal going into the season was to be in the mix. I thought it was a realistic goal to be in the mix. I didn't think they would get in. I thought they'd be able to hang around until mid-March or whatever, and then sort of fall off. And that almost was the case, but now they fought back and they're right in the mix. And this season is already a success if they don't get in. And if they do get in, it's just a massive success. And to me, unexpectedly, because I thought they were good enough to sort of hang around, but I didn't think they were good enough to get in. And then you factor in Patrick Laine missed 30 games.
Well, that's it, because I remember that was the point.
Really badly when he was here. There's a lot of things that could have thrown this off the rails, but at the end of the day, it didn't.
Well, I remember when Patrick Laine went down with that injury in the preseason. That was the point where you and I said, same old injury bug, injury luck, better luck next year, Canadiens.
It took the air of the balloon, right? Everybody was so excited, right?
It really did.
In the mix, and Patrick Laine, and everybody was, and then boom, the guy blows out his knee, and everybody's like, "Oh, here we go again." And 30 games, 15 power play goals. He's second in the NHL in power play goals, and he missed 30 games. He's one off the NHL lead.
It's really unbelievable. Yeah. You mentioned the Laval Rocket. I need to mention that I went to the Laval Rocket game 2 Saturdays ago. They played the Cleveland Monsters. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is, well, one, they won that game 6-0. And two, is that there was something that I saw in that game that was so unbelievable. Because to me, rightly or wrongly, if you are not a blue chip prospect, billed as a blue chip prospect, I don't buy the hype. I don't buy it. You got to show me. So that's why I always said, rightly or wrongly, again, I'm no scout, but the only guys that I was really excited about in the Canadiens organization, Ivan Demidov and David Reinbacher. Is that correct? Who's to say? But in that Laval Rocket game, he didn't do much offensively. However, the thing that I noticed was Florian Xhekaj. This guy is a stone cold killer with the way he carries himself, his demeanor on the ice. It was, Stu, this was one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. Now how often do we say that we can't send player X to the AHL because he's just going to get killed out there. He's going to get killed. They're going to target him. They're going to this, they're going to that. Florian Xhekaj is a rookie in the AHL. Stu, when I tell you Cleveland, this game, they knew they were going to lose, or they must have known they were going to lose because they had no interest in playing hockey and it was pure goonery. They did not even look in the direction. Like, they didn't even spit or even glance over at Florian Xhekaj. This guy is going to be a gem in the rough. for the Canadiens. I don't know what role he will play because it's hard to say how these things are going to translate. And again, I'm no scout, but this guy will be an incredible player and a fan favorite for the Montreal Canadiens. That I can make a guarantee right now.
It's funny you say that because I went to a Rocket game a couple of weeks ago, and he was the best player on the ice. He stood out the most. He's a fourth-line center. He's got 20 goals, and he'll fight anybody. And he covers so much ice. When the Canadiens drafted him, they described him as a unicorn, right? And that's exactly what he is. I mean, he 20 goals in the AHL as a rookie, playing the fourth line, fighting anybody who wants to challenge him. And he stood out. I mean, I went to the game, Philip Massar. Ryan Backer didn't play the game I was at. He was hurt. Yep. Harvey Pinard was playing, these guys, and nobody stood out more in that game on the Rocket than Florian Xhekaj. And you talk about guys not looking at him. Here's a guy, the younger brother of Arbor, who beat the crap out of him every day when they were kids. And Arbor spoke, and they're living together here in Arbor and Florian in Montreal too. And I spoke with Arbor about that earlier this season. And he said, yeah, I used to beat him up every day. He says, my father was so friggin' tough on me, and he wasn't tough on the little brother, and he used to piss me off. So I used to beat him up all the time. And then I tweeted a story about that, and their mother responded on Twitter saying, yeah, I remember Florian coming in crying every day after his brother had beat him up. And they love each other. I mean, they live there, they love each other, but they're two tough dudes. And as you say, Florian, he is, excuse me, he is a unicorn, like the Habs said. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him with the team next year. Yoel Armia is going to be gone. There's going to be a spot there on the fourth line. He can play center. I believe he was a winger in junior, if I'm not mistaken, and they've sort of moved him to center. So, if he can play both and go back and forth, that's another, makes him more versatile, obviously. And it'll be interesting to see. I think he's going to have a real good chance to make the Canadiens at training camp next season.
Yeah, it's just the look.
Mike Pizzetta's another guy's not going to be here, right? Pizzetta won't be here. Armia won't be here. And then you have a guy who's plays like Mike Pizzetta and has a skill level sort of like the old Armia, right? He's a big guy who can score in the AHL and hit and play. And so it's an awful, as I said, just watching that game a couple weeks ago in Laval, he just stood out. Like, if you went to the game and you didn't know who anybody was, and you say which player was the best player on the ice, he was.
Yeah, exactly. And just because it's funny, we were sitting, my friend and I, we were sitting 4 rows up behind the bench on the tunnel where the Rocket come out. And you could hear everything that's going on the bench. And it's just the constant yapping between the two teams. And then you just look at Xhekaj. This guy has the look in his eye that his next shift, he is ready to go out there and just demolish everyone on the ice. Just end the game right there. Yep. It was really, really noticeable. And that is something for Canadiens fans to get excited about, because for someone like me who puts zero stock into any hype of any player drafted outside of a top 10 pick, for me to say this, it means a lot. Again, I'm no scout. I've been in media for, I think, 6 years now. So who am I? But this is something that's on the board. We have the clip. Sammy and Yellow will be in my corner when Florian Xhekaj has 30 goals, 20 assists, and 200 penalty minutes in the NHL one season.
No, look at his stats here this year. 62 games, 20 goals, 11 assists, 31 points, 159 penalty minutes. We were talking about plus minus. You have to take it with a grain of salt. Plus 10. The other thing is, this is a 20-year-old kid playing against men for the first time.
Yep.
He was playing junior last year. He was the oldest kid one of the oldest kids in the league, right? At the final year of junior. Now you put him playing against men. No fear. No fear.
Zero. And in fact, he's instilling fear. He's instilling fear in his opponents. It's really unbelievable.
He's a tough kid. I mean, as I said, I guess if I grew up with Arbor Xhekaj beating the crap out of me every day, I'd be a pretty tough kid too.
Yeah, you just wouldn't know it until you face off against someone else.
Exactly. Yeah.
So let's finish up here. We only talked about him a little bit, but he deserves his flowers. I mean, my God, Nick Suzuki, just another incredible performance last night. It's funny because Pierre Maguire on the Sick podcast said he compared him to Joe Sakic, which it's so rare that you see a player. Maybe it's just rare for Canadiens fans. I don't know, because we haven't had a talented group like this in Montreal in very, very long. But, it's so rare that you just see a player, and through every single year of him being in the NHL, the progress is so linear and it's so evident. You could see it right there in front of your very eyes. Mm-hmm. And with Nick Suzuki, it's just, this guy is incredible. I wasn't around. I was around in Joe Sakic's later years. He was actually at the Canadiens were actually playing the Colorado Avalanche in the second ever game I ever went to. And it was Joe Sakic's last time in Montreal. But I was maybe 13 years old at the time. I didn't know what the hell was. No, I was less than 13. Mm-hmm. I must have been 10 years old at the time. So I don't have a good comparison here, but Pierre says Joe Sakic. You say what?
No, Joe Sakic. Now that I'm hearing that's a great comparison, because Joe Sakic could put points up. He could play power play. He could play any situation. He was all around just solid hockey player, right? Joe Sakic, I think, a little bit more offensive ability than Nick, but just that solid, respected 200-foot centerman who goes up and down. And with Nick, as you say, look, what is his ceiling now offensively, right? People say, he's not a point per game player. Well, now he is. And as you said, every year he just improves. He just gets a little bit better, right? Every single year his offensive numbers go up a little bit more. And then next year you're going to bring in Demidov, another talented player for him to play with. We're talking plus minus for a bit of grain of salt, but he was plus 14 playing against the other team's top line every night, right? It's
every single night,
which is impressive on a team that struggled as bad as the Canadiens did at points during the season. So I see I can see why he would say Joe Sakic, because their personalities seem very similar too. Joe Sakic was that quiet guy. He was a captain, not a big rah-rah type guy, more of a lead by example type of guy. Similar type of size also, right? But strong on the puck, strong on their skates. But I think in the future, there'll be a lot of people saying, does this guy remind you of Nick Suzuki? Or, you know what I mean? Because talk about a role model for young players coming into the NHL, young centermen coming into the NHL, about how to play. He's just so smart. Like, I watch him from the press box. We get a different type of view, right? We're on the 8th floor. We're looking down on them. So you see a lot of stuff that happens behind the plays and little plays here and there. And there's like every game, there's at least 10 times, if not more, that Nick Suzuki just makes a little play. Maybe it's a chip into the corner, a good dump in, or a back check, or something where you go, man, like we talked about Lane Hutson earlier, how he sees the game differently. Nick Suzuki sees the game differently. He anticipates the game so well. He anticipates plays. I mean, how many times does he intercept passes going through the neutral zone? How many times does he turn around at a transition game and get a 2-on-1 going the other way? The Canadiens certainly made the right choice when they named him captain, made him the youngest captain in franchise history at age 23. And that's another, important step that these guys got right in this rebuild with Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton. And I remember that day when they named him the captain at the golf course, and it was basically between him and Brendan Gallagher, right? But at the time, I'm saying he was the right choice, because they were starting to rebuild. At that time, he didn't know if Brendan Gallagher, how much longer he was going to be here. At that point, if they could have traded his contract, they probably would have. You want a younger captain with a younger team, right? The guys, same sort of age group as all these guys coming up. And they made a really, really good pick when they made Nick Suzuki captain.
So I think more people from my generation would say he is Patrice Bergeron 2.0. Yeah. But I would say this. Patrice Bergeron had his career high in points. Let me just get this right here. He had 3 70-point seasons under his belt. I don't know how many seasons. He's played a lot of seasons. Mm-hmm. 3 70-point seasons under his belt. Nick Suzuki already has 2.
Yeah.
That's there. Now, we'll see, because this team will be making the playoffs, hopefully for years to come, as Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes want that to be the case. And we'll see how he performs in the playoffs. for many years. But, in his first year in the playoffs with the Canadiens, it was the bubble year. First of all, Carey Price saved his life that year with that save against Philadelphia. And he had 7 points in 10 games. And then as a rookie, and if you remember correctly, the Canadiens could not, let alone put the puck in the back of the net, they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn in that series against Philadelphia. The offense was just non-existent in that series. And again, in his second year in the playoffs, he put up 16 points in 22 games.
Yeah.
So this is an exciting player who is built for playoff hockey, as well as regular season, and just very exciting to see Nick Suzuki again in the playoffs. Hopefully, if it happens, and even next year, you ask everyone from Montreal, he's a shoo-in for the Olympic team. But apparently he's not to everywhere else, which is just really mind-boggling because this guy's going to be, he'll probably finish the season with 85 points, if not more. And he could be left off the team. I mean, if Canada didn't win gold this year in the Four Nations, how many people at the end of the season would be looking at Nick Suzuki and saying, hey, maybe Team Canada could have used a player like that?
Yeah, there's a lot of good players that don't make Team Canada, right? I mean, Team Canada could put two teams in that tournament; they'd both be pretty competitive. But you go back
and the gold medal game.
Yeah, the hockey DB page I have up here in front of me too. The year before he turned pro with the Guelph Storm, 24 playoff games, Suzuki had 42 points. Guelph won the league championship, so he's a playoff performer, and I think he was, having Kent Hughes say after the Four Nations break, it's up to you to put the team on your shoulders and carry them, and not making Team Canada were the two things that Nick Suzuki went, oh yeah, okay, I'm going to show you guys, and he has done that. It's going to be interesting too to see with the World Championships this year if the Canadiens don't go far in the playoffs, and if he gets the invite. If he goes, I can remember last year he was invited to go to Team Canada for World Championship. He chose not to because he went and got engaged after the season ended, and that might have factored in a little bit too in the decision not to include him on the Four Nations team. If it came down to this guy or that guy, well, this guy didn't accept our invitation last year for Team Canada, so we're going to take the other guy. But if he does get that invitation this year, if the Canadiens are out of the playoffs early, I would imagine he's going to go. And Nick Suzuki he's very competitive. Nobody gets the NHL without being competitive, but he's quietly competitive. Like, he's not going to say, I wanted to prove all these guys wrong. He's just going to say it to himself. And he's been going out and he's been doing it. And it really, really has been impressive how he's been able to bring this team along with them, just leading by example. And, if you can compare him to Joe Sakic, you can compare him to Patrice Bergeron. There's a mix of the two, maybe, is probably the best way to compare him. But he's Nick Suzuki, and that's who he is. He plays his own game,
and we'll see what type of game he plays tomorrow night, because we've seen the Canadiens show up in the big games. Even last night against Boston. Yes, Boston is last in the East, or bottom two in the East. However, it's still, I don't care what anyone says. This is still a rivalry. It's a big time. It feels big when the Canadiens play the Bruins.
And these next three games, and you got the Flyers here tomorrow night, Nashville on Sunday in Nashville, and then Detroit Tuesday back at the Bell Center. Those are three teams that aren't great teams behind the Canadiens in the standings. These are three games. I think they got to win all three of these games, because after that you have back-to-back next Friday and Saturday on the road against Ottawa and Toronto. And then they finish off against Chicago and Carolina. So these next three games, I think if the Canadiens can win all three of those, I think they're looking really, really good as far as getting into the playoffs. If they lose 2 out of the 3, no, they're going to be in trouble.
We're having a different conversation next week. That's for sure, because that's not to say that they would miss, but they would be making their jobs and lives a lot harder.
Yeah,
and
so that road back-to-back against Ottawa and Toronto, that's going to be tough. Like, if they can split that, you're going to be happy, right? If you can split those 2 games. So these next 3 games, like the last game in Philadelphia when they lost, but I think the Flyers were on the adrenaline that Tortorella got fired that day. definitely fired up Michkov.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, it's funny. It's funny you say that because I said this to a friend today. I go, now that Tortorella is out of town, Michkov next year, the guy is going to score 60 goals. This guy is unbelievable. He's going to score 50 or 60 next year. He's just great.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about before, how Marty St. Louis handled Lane Hutson, right? Compare that with how Tortorella has handled Michkov. So they're apples and oranges, right? Even though Marty St. Louis is a huge fan of John Tortorella, loved playing for him. They're good friends, says he learned a lot from him. But they have different styles of coaching. There's no doubt about that.
Well, we'll see. It starts tomorrow night. This is where this is a big step, because this is where you see the good teams rise to the top, because the good teams take care of business. They do what they need to do. The Canadiens are 3-0 in their last 3 games. They're in a very, very good spot. But now you're not in the basement anymore. You're not a part of this group of teams. You're playing 3 teams in the basement. Well, Detroit, not so much, but they could end Detroit's season. You need to take at least these next 2 games. Yeah. You need to, because you need your revenge. You need your get back. And Nashville is just that whole experiment with all 6 or 5 veterans that they signed this offseason has just been a disaster.
Yeah,
so
it is a tough back-to-back. Feel that you're changing time zones. That is rare you do a back-to-back where it's a difference. It's only an hour difference, but it's still a difference. So that's going to be something to deal with. Also, tough back-to-back, but not as tough as the back-to-back Friday, Saturday against Ottawa and Toronto next weekend.
They would take this one over that one, that's for sure. Stu, enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the hockey. It's going to be pissing rain tomorrow here in Montreal, but we'll make the best of it because it's positive degrees, and that means spring is here, but it's really inching along. It's not really.
Spring is always better when the Canadiens are in the playoffs. So
that'll make it a lot more palatable. Make it a lot more palatable. Stu, have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too.
That's Stu Cowan. I'm Matt Ohayon. For Sammy and Yellow Pack and Master Control, we'll catch you next time.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBita.tb. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.